Okay, video for Parag the procrastinator, who, after waiting 2 weeks to get his arcade game, finally wants to know what tools he needs. So some of these I have, and you can borrow them, or you can bring shit over here, and we can do it together. But voltmeter, especially for continuity when you're figuring out which connections to put, which connectors on, switches and things you need to put wires on. Heat gun for shrink wrap for when you are repairing wires and eliminating extra, like jumper. I'll see if I can find an example of it, but it's cleaning stuff up. Crimpers, very handy for doing a bunch of things, including making some of your own spade connections. Oh, and here's the shrink wrap tubing. Makes a very professional job. You're going to need little snips of some sort. You're going to need a pair of needle nose pliers. As we start to get into connectors, you're going to need a little pick of like this, and this is a connector tool, crimper. It takes a while to get used to it, but you can bring stuff over here and I can help you make connectors. Wire strippers for small gauge. You're going to use that a lot. Some screwdrivers. You can use a soldering iron, but a soldering gun on this project works really well because it heats up fast, and you have a lot of downtime in between solder connections sometimes. And for the pins, so it's a much cleaner job if you use these little rows, these little connectors, and you crimp these little crimper thingamabobbers, pins, sockets really, onto the end of the wires, and then you stick them in. And I can show you what that does. We already did the spade connectors. Okay, wires. So again, you don't need a ton of wires, so I can give you some, but you need some wire and some tie wraps. And I have these guys, which are, it's a sticker that you can, you take this adhesive off and you stick this somewhere and inside, and then you can tie wrap like wires, wire harnesses, things like that, so it puts them in a certain spot. So that's very handy. You'll need one of these guys to put the power into your amplifier. And I cleaned up a lot of the wiring with this stuff right here. This is makes a big difference, so I'll show you inside in a minute. So as far as the supplies go, I can give you that stuff. And I can give you a resistor. I put a 100 ohm resistor in series with the marquee lights because I thought they were too bright. So, whoop, get the new guy. And if we look into the arcade, which is just sitting in here, I wasn't prepared for this. I didn't think I was going to do this. But so you'll see the wire wrap. You can see how it makes a much nicer job. On my joysticks, I had to use those spade connectors. And see this black extra guy here? So depending on how you route your jumper to jumper to jumper for grounds, you end up with extras, and they just look awful, and that's a ground potential that can hit something. Here I just pulled the insulation down over it and wrapped it. Really, what I did on all the other spots that I had that was I cut this out and soldered them together with heat shrink, and so they look awesome. And I don't know if I can find one real quick, but yeah, right here. So there's, I don't know if you can barely see that, but the yellow and the black are both examples of that. So it just looks a lot nicer. And if we go inside, here's the plug that you're going to put on, very dark. So more spade connectors. Boy, this thing is not getting good light in here. So hang on one second. Let me get a flashlight. Okay. So spade connectors and some solder. The spade connectors so that you can take the door off. I didn't want to solder everything on there. And that's just the power cord that I cut. I put a power supply in. I like it a lot better than having the power strip with all the plugs in it. And you can find these pretty cheap. I already had this one and it's only a 12 volts. It didn't have 5 volts, so I ordered a real cheap, like $6 or something like that, $10 maybe. 12 to 5 volt power adapter for the Pi, for the Raspberry Pi itself. I have a case for this Raspberry Pi that I ordered. The bees take a different case, and that'll make that a little bit better than rather than having that mounted directly to the wood. And here you can see some of those hold downs. They just kind of organize things. And there's that power thingamabobber for the amplifier. I put in fancier speakers and made my own connectors. Used those spade connectors some more. And that's there's the resistor. Let's see if we can get it. There it is. So there's the 100 ohm resistor that is in series with the marquee lights. So that just makes it a little bit dimmer. It looked too overpowering. Oh, and there you can see those are those strip connectors that I made, that I crimped, those black blocks, and you can imagine those are a lot better than I don't even remember what he. Oh, some of those came. I think he included some of those. Yeah, and I put my own in there for a lot of the situations where they weren't there. And I think I have an example of my old joystick cable. Yep. So before I changed joysticks, this is the harness that I made. So this harness came from him like this. I put the wrap on it, and then I put this end on it. And so he had these wires. He was showing you twisting these wires around the spade connectors and taping them, and that's just no. So that's much cleaner. So I would give you those, except I still have my old joysticks, so if I ever use these for anything, I'll need them. I'm also going to experiment with, this is an amplifier as well, so I don't know if I'm going to take the time to replace the one that's in there with this one, just as an experiment. It's an arcade, it came from an arcade company. Okay, so that's what you need, and this is my 5 and 12 volt power supply that I ordered again from, you can actually see Retro Arcade US. And here's a 5 volt power supply that I had stripped down for a while for doing testing. Okay, that's what you need. Good luck.